Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a review and installation guide of this 55-liter aluminum top box from Amazon. This one I got for around $180, so I'm going to be answering the question, is it worth your time and money? So yeah, let's check it out. Looking at the bike from the front, you can see there is backrests included with the case itself, which can be beneficial if you have a passenger, and I think it honestly makes it look a little bit cleaner. Looking at it from the rear of the bike, you can see it is big due to it being 55 liters, which is honestly massive, but I don't think it actually spoils the bike as much as I expected. I was kind of worried about that, honestly. I was asking people in the forums, like, how much is this going to ruin the bike? Am I going to look like a dentist? Please. And I honestly think it looks fine, especially after I changed out those reflectors, which I'll talk about a little later. I honestly think it kind of looks good. So this is the 55-liter variant of the top box. It is approximately 13.3 pounds with the backrest installed on it. I went ahead and installed these red reflector strips. It comes with reflector strips that are yellow. The yellow is just a bit much for me, but at least it's not completely invisible in the dark. You can get these at like any hardware store or Walmart. These go on your mailbox and they reflect at night. So inside your case, you're going to get two keys. I've already attached these to my current keys, and you can unlock the box itself and you can lock the box to the bike once it's installed. These locks feel honestly really sturdy for the price. Quality is pretty decent. There's going to be a button underneath here which unlatches, and then you can pull this down and then the box opens. So the top of the box has these two little pockets. It comes lined with this, I'd assume, pleather sort of lining, and it's padded, which is nice, so you don't have to worry so much about things crashing them down. And there's also this little Y buckle to hold your things in place. So when you first get the box and open it, which I've already opened this, by the way, and made sure it fits on the bike so that it's not all laid out, but you're gonna have these two yellow reflectors. One center one if you want to have their logo, which is not pre-installed, which I honestly think is great because I don't really want that. You're going to have your set of keys, which obviously I've taken out. Here is the brand of reflective tape I got. I thought this was a pretty decent size. I already had this laying around, so I thought it was just kind of perfect. You're also going to have your backrests in here. There's two separate pieces, a top piece and then a lower pad. And they have 3M on the back of them, and they include little alcohol wipes and a little drying wipe. I just used normal rubbing alcohol. Here is a look at the rear of the case. I have these backresters installed. You obviously do not need to if you're never planning on using a passenger. You might save a little bit of weight with that. But one thing I wanted to point out is, unlike some of the high-end $800 boxes like that, this includes plastic hinges. And honestly, they seem pretty durable, but that's just one thing you're gonna miss out on with the lower quality. Obviously, the whole case is aluminum, and I would make sure to confirm that before ordering, because some of these cheaper cases do have an aluminum top, but some have a plastic top and aluminum sides. And I've seen one where all of the entire box was plastic and they were claiming it was aluminum. So just be sure of that before you order. It has little strapping mounts on the corners and plastic bumpers. One thing I'd like to point out is these metal bars are slightly flimsy, and that's due to these plastic mounts. So I would be careful not putting an insane amount of weight on these. I don't think it'll break just like carrying around your luggage, because I've been carrying it with this and it's been absolutely fine, even like fully loaded with stuff. But if anything breaks when you crash the bike, and if this makes contact, I feel like this is going to be one of the first things to break. So the case is going to come with a universal mounting plate, which attaches to right here. I have mine on the bike already, and I did have to make some adjustments. So I'll show you that in a bit and show you what you have to do for the Transalp specifically. The plate that mounts it to the box itself is pretty thick. So is the universal mount, but you're going to have to drill, like I was saying. And this is the latching mechanism that holds it onto the plate, and that as well is pretty sturdy considering. So I think for the price, the quality is like really good, honestly. I think it's honestly a really good deal. So let's get to the bike. So here is the universal frame that came with the box itself. And so what I had to do to make this work I use these 2 bolts through here, and these fit through the factory holes on the original bracket, but I had to drill these 2 holes right here on the sides because there was no slider that the bolts actually could go through, and that pretty much worked. The only issue that I had with these mounting spots that I added is removing and putting back on the seat. So when you remove it, it's not that bad, but getting it onto these hooks that are underneath the seat with this in the way is honestly quite difficult. And I was able to do it, but it took me about 10 minutes of just moving it back and forth and trying again and again and again. If you want to move this a little more far forward, that would give you a lot to work with. But I must warn you, be careful of how far you're putting the weight back on the bike. So I wouldn't go like all the way back here, maybe just right about here if possible. When you're drilling the holes themselves, I wanted to add that you can use one of those tree-shaped bits that increases in size as you go down. I'll have a picture or an actual name, but just make sure you start off with a small pilot hole, or use like a sharp object like a pen and a hammer, and just knock a little indent in there so it can catch and be in the perfect spot. So another tip I have is for when you're preparing to drill these rear holes, once you put in these front bolts where you want it to be, hold this plate in place, and you can take either a pen or a paint marker or anything like that you can fit through the bottom hole right here. Make sure you don't have anything in there and just mark it on the bottom where you're planning to drill, and then that'll be a perfect indicator of where you need to be so you don't have to drill twice or mess up the first time or anything. And that way you don't even have to get like perfect measurements. As long as it's like equal on both sides where you mark it, that's going to be amazing. That's all you really have to do. So for mounting on the rear of the bike, I used these 2 included washers and the longer bolts, threaded them through, having it so this end that sticks up was towards the bike. In the install video that is included, they did it the opposite way because there was sort of a frame rail right here, but I figured this would give me a better contact patch. I'm pretty sure this is just a 10 millimeter, super easy. It's a nylock nut, so you shouldn't need to use thread locker, but you might want to use thread locker just in case. As long as you don't plan on removing this all the time, that might be a good idea. Just to hold it on, make sure it's super secure. But the way I've done it, doesn't wiggle at all. The whole bike is actually moving, and it's pretty secure the way it is. So with the rear, you aren't able to actually use the W-shaped brackets that are included in the box. So I was just using the normal shorter bolt with a nylock 10 millimeter on it. And it seems to be holding just fine, but I would take that into consideration for when you're doing the install. So installing the box onto the bike itself is super simple and takes under a minute. All you have to do is set it on top of there, make sure your latch is up, and there's these 4 little slots. All you have to do is get it lined up on all 4 of these little holes, and then push in a little bit, open your latch, and that's it. So one thing you should consider is adjusting your rear suspension preload when you're putting weight on the bike. So I'm carrying around 25 pounds of total luggage, and so what I did is I put it on the 5th setting, which seems to be fine for me and my body weight, but you should do your own research around what other people your size are using, because I know a lot of people run it on 7, which is the highest possible setting that you can use. When you're adjusting it, there is a tool included in your underseat toolbox, and all you have to do is to turn it higher, you push it this way, and there's little sort of ramps that it goes up onto. But I will tell you, it is much, much easier if you're lifting up on the bike or have a bike on a center stand. You don't have to fully lift the suspension off the ground. Just putting some pressure or having a friend lift the rear of the bike upwards is enough to take the weight off of the suspension. All right, so before I move on to anything else, I want to demonstrate how much you can fit in this box and still have room to go. So I've just thrown a bunch of things that I would deem to be essential in here, just as an example. And so I'm going to show you now. So I have a spare helmet. I don't use this one, but I have a spare helmet, which can easily fit. Plus there's a ton of room left over. I have this travel bag, which you can get these in sets at like Walmart or anything. They have a bunch of different bags included for storage. So let me show you what's inside of there. So inside of the bag, I have my rain and cold weather liner rolled up for efficiency's sake. And this is perfect if you live in somewhere where it rains a ton, like Florida. And also, for Florida's sake, I have a pair of UV protective sunglasses. These are Ray-Bans. I also carry a 12-volt charging adapter in case my phone dies or I need to charge anything up. This is super helpful to have around, especially if you have the 12-volt socket installed. Here I have a caliper lock. I just throw this on the bike whenever I park it anywhere. Fits easily. You should also try to keep the weight pretty low down, so all the heavier objects at the bottom, if possible. And this last bag is my staying alive bag, you know, like the song. You get it, you get it. So inside of this first bag, I have a second bag, which is first aid. And so inside of this, I have a first aid kit, which includes a few things, gloves, bandages, gauze. I also have, these are like shop towels, just wipe up blood. And so this is another first aid kit that I got with a emergency roadside kit. It's just got a few extra things in there. This is a emergency survival blanket. It's one of those silver blankets that you see, but if you're going somewhere where you get stranded and it's going to be cold overnight, this can help you from getting hypothermia. Obviously, it's not going to be comfortable, but it'll save your life. Here, albuterol inhaler for us who can't breathe but still decide to ruin our lungs. Some Aleve for allergies and whatnot. And here is an extra pair of sealed gloves that I have. And some chapstick. Don't forget your chapstick. It's important. You don't want cracked lips. What do little ladies think of that? They'll think you're horrible. So this other bag that I have inside of here is more survival oriented. Like if you break down, you need to fix something quick or, you know, it'll keep you going. So inside of this, I keep sunscreen and hand sanitizer. Both are very important. Hand sanitizer, great. You meet some nasty people and they want to shake your hand. Hand sanitizer is also great for a medical sense. You want to keep your hands clean. If you're trying to bandage a wound up and you have nasty hands, you're getting that dirt all trapped in your wound. So that's great. Sunscreen is so obvious, but never used enough. If you're riding a motorcycle, don't be like me with these damn permanent sunburns on your wrists. Use some sunscreen. Next up in my survival pack is a utility knife. This has pliers on it, which can be helpful in so many different situations. It has a file, a knife, bunch of different tools, screwdrivers. It's super helpful, honestly. I can't recommend enough having this on you. It's just, I use it all the time for so many different things. Really helpful tool. Next up, I have zip ties. You can use cable ties, zip ties. This is just to hold things together when they break, because things will break, you know, things want to fall off. I also carry a small roll of duct tape. If you get into a very freezing situation, you can use this alongside your survival blanket, which can make a makeshift sleeping bag of sorts. Highly recommend you just have a small bit of this on you. You don't need a giant roll or anything, and that's why I have this small one. Next up, we have a flashlight. Very helpful. I live in complete darkness out here. There's no street lights, there's no nothing. Have a flashlight. This is a compact one. Having a few extra bungee cords is helpful if you need to store something to your tail rack. You can also store it on your bag using the top hooks that it has on there. Just hook it onto these little bungee cords and you're set. You don't need to carry 1,000 of these, just 2 and cross it. I also like to carry this little screwdriver set. This is from iFixit. It's for computers, but it has a bunch of different size bits on it. It's got Torx and Allen and regular screwdriver and flathead. It's small, it's compact, and it stays together. It's just useful to have. Obviously, it's no replacement for a full toolkit, but you're trying to pack light. This is a really essential tool to have on your bike. I actually have 2 of them, one in my under seat tool bag and one in this box. This is a tire pressure gauge. Honestly, it's so important to have this. Just keep one on you. Keep a few of them on you. They're really light and they're like $1. Just get them. Next up, I have a lighter. You need one of these on you. Whether it's you have a chain smoking buddy or, you know, you've been peer pressured to join or you're in the middle of the woods and you need to start a fire. Just keep one on you. This is a folding funnel. It can fold out and you can use it for filling up your coolant, your oil. It folds really compactly. It doesn't take up a lot of space and it's really light, unlike a normal funnel, which would take up, that much space. This is not something I carry with me, but this is a portable air compressor that plugs into your 12-volt outlet, and you can pump up your tires with your bike. I would make sure to leave your bike running though, because that battery will die. It also comes with a few extra accessories. You can pump up a ball or an air mattress if you need to. Just something to consider having if you're going on a real long road trip. But again, the weight is not something that makes it worth bringing with me every day. Now, the last thing I would recommend is keeping a few spare tools around that are specific for your bike. That means having spare sockets around that are common on your bike. I would not recommend carrying a gigantic socket set or anything like that. Just keep lightweight tools. You can use 1/4-inch sockets as long as they go up to the sizes you need. Stuff that you're going to be using frequently. A few Allen sockets, a wrench for your wheels, that is a must-have. I don't believe they include it in the factory kit. Just a few things you're going to use often in case you break down. But a lot of this stuff you're not going to need to use every day, so I wouldn't worry about it, but just keep that in mind if you're going on a long road trip. Now, the last thing I would recommend is having some water. You can use a life straw, you can have a hydro pack on your back. Just have water on you. Heat stroke is a real thing, especially in the summer. Down here in the south, it gets so hot, you will become dehydrated, and that becomes a huge risk to you and the drivers around you. Stay safe, drink lots of water, all right? One last honorable mention to have around. This is called a balaclava. This is great to have if you are in cold weather conditions. It'll keep the cold wind off of your face and keep you warm. If your helmet is fogging up and you need to have that visor cracked a little bit, this will keep your face from freezing to death, This is a helmet net, which can hook onto the top of the box itself. The helmet net unfolds and has these little hooks. And on one side of the net, it is open like this. So you can either slip a helmet or whatever you want to put inside of it. And then once you hook it, it closes that with tension. So it's not going to fall out. So even after everything I showed you in the bag, I still have a lot of room in the bag itself for more things. And I have room on the side of the bag, if you can see that. And so you can still fit a ton of stuff in this box. There's a ton of room, more than you need, really. But remember, pack the heavy things at the bottom and the light things at the top. So, what are my thoughts? I think it is amazing for the price you're paying. You can get a ton of much more expensive boxes where there will only be slight improvements compared to this one. And obviously you're not going to get GV on the side or anything like that. But for the price you're paying, I think this is honestly fantastic and you really can't go wrong. One thing to consider is the size for your bike and how much you're going to be carrying with you. They have a ton of different size options from like 35 liters, I do believe, all the way up to 80 liters. I chose 55 personally because I didn't want something super wide in case I dropped the bike. I think honestly this is going to be perfect for me and my needs, being able to put some groceries in here or carry around just miscellaneous objects that otherwise I would have to have in my backpack and that would be weighing down on me, making me ride worse. The quality is like fantastic for being 180 bucks. If you're using your bike for utility, this is something I would consider an essential. You can run soft bags on the side, so that way if you are off-roading frequently, have the hard bag on top where it's not going to get all damaged and then soft bags on the side. But either way, I think this is a great choice if you're looking for some budget luggage. Thank you guys for checking out my video, and I hope you subscribe to the channel for future Transalp content. Have a good day, y'all.